Exciting development in the relationship between EOH Industrial Technologies, and Steag Energy Services. We have a long history together, and after this history, we've decided to formalize the relationship, I guess, in a far more tighter and comprehensive partnership, strategic partnership, I guess, which will serve to combine the strengths of the two organizations and serve the energy sector and the large industrial market within the energy space in South Africa and potentially Southern Africa as well. EOH as a technology, engineering and solutions and services company, we seek to combine that with the long track record, the skills, the technology, as well as the experience that Steag brings to the energy sector from a plant engineering, operations and management perspective. So it's an exciting development, and we certainly believe that together we can add significant value to the utility market in our geography. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so welcome from my side also. Yeah, I think it is an important and a great milestone for our partnership between EOH and Steag Energy Services. You know, we have been thinking about establishing this joint venture for quite a while, and we have thought through this idea also quite intensively, and we are, since we first had this idea, very much convinced that it is a partnership between equals, that it is a partnership where each of the partners brings a certain set of competencies to the table, and combined it does make it can make a great difference to the power generation sector in South Africa, and as Sinead said, also to the region maybe at a later stage. I think it is worth to mention that the services of the joint venture will cover basically all phases of a power project, starting from inception, when you go pre-feasibility, feasibility studies, engineering. The joint venture will be capable to then, help, assist and support project development, construction, commissioning, go through operation and maintenance of power plants, up to optimization of power plants which are in operation. You might understand that Steag is the mother company of us. They own and operate 12 gigawatts of power plants of multiple sources. And as a service company, Steag Energy Services runs for third-party customers 6.5 gigawatts of power plants all over the planet, so to say. And we run coal-fired, gas-fired power plants, we run wind, hydro, CSP, PV, so biomass, so all different kinds of power plants, which are also very important for Africa. I think all of you who had the chance to attend the panel sessions this morning, I think there was a lot about regional development, there was a lot about renewable development and the need of power and transmission. I think the joint venture, as it stands, tries to combine these technical competencies from an internationally renowned company with the local strength and expertise of EOH. I think in that combination, we both are very convinced that this can contribute to the development of the power sector in South Africa and the region. Thank you.
So let me start with what the future might look like, or is already evolving into. The world of energy is actually in transformation, or already has been transformed in some areas depending on the maturity of the landscapes that we operate in. It's going towards more of an integrated energy system. I think gone are the days that you had remote island generation capacity where you evacuated power to remote load centers. Today it is a more complex and more volatile and a dynamic system. With technology disruptors like storage, electrical vehicles, wind smart grids, the flow of both power and information is paramount. And existing assets as well as new future related assets has to transform to accommodate these type of trends. Over the last 2 days, we've also spoken a lot in terms of our breakout sessions around global trends. So let me share a little bit around the main ones that I think are important in terms of our current environment. So if we look at population growth and the mega trends around urbanization in bigger cities, it is in this space that we can actually influence a lot around the technologies to abide and cooperate in terms of the COP21 and climate requirements that we have. If we look at the Africa continent on its own, there's over 1 billion people. It is also forecast that over half of this population don't have access to basic energy. Linked to this, operators, plant and utilities have to abide in terms of their own independence as well as reliability in the power space. They've got to contend with aging infrastructure as well as capacity and also non-technical processes. Furthermore, they've got to play around the energy balance with loads, looking at both generation and grid capacity, and ultimately cost of ownership as well as operations of the plant as well as the grid. If we bring that into some context with Africa and our shaping the future of our African continent, there are key trends, or call it disruptors. One is around the African economic growth. As I said, purposes from the urbanization and getting basic access to energy to the masses, there's a big growth in terms of pure generation that's required. Linked with that is also going to bring a host of different energy mixes. So we've already seen in South Africa with the renewable program. We've seen now the advent of gas, nuclear, and it will evolve even further depending on the resources available on the rest of the continent, via geothermal and other wind and solar and small hydro. With this also comes the expansion of the power infrastructure. And I think this is even critical, that it's got to be planned. It cannot be in isolation to the generation capacity. Because ultimately you've got to evacuate these power to the relevant load centers. Customers are also evolving. At the end of the day, gone are the days that they are only pure consumers. There's a term now called prosumers. So with distributed generation, producing our own energy, we need to put it onto the grid. So they have an interesting element to contribute part of the bigger ecosystem as a key stakeholder. And that's also going to be considered. If we look at smart utilities, in terms of revenue protection, they're looking at smart metering, trying to secure that they collect kilowatt hour produced versus kilowatt hour sold. But it's also beyond that. Ultimately, we're trying to evolve to a concept where we talk about smart appliances, smart home, smart streets, smart suburbs, and ultimately smart grid. So all of these market changes in structures and dynamics has some form of influence in terms of the policy, the pricing, as well as the technology. And this is forcing in terms of how we look at our business models, strategies of how to operate as a traditional utility, and alter in terms of how we operate our power plants, and more importantly, the assets. So the disruptives I mentioned also poses a lot of opportunities in this space. In one area, as I mentioned, around the African economic growth, clearly there's an attraction in terms of the generation capability to attract foreign direct investment. So there will be some money available. And I think that the opening plenary did mention there's abundant money available as long as you've got a viable project associated with the relevant businesses. Renewable technology. In spite of the paramount cost savings and the technology evolution, there's a whole new market in terms of off-grid, micro or mini-grid solutions. And that is another area to really get energy to the remote locations as well as the communities. In terms of the market structures and dynamics, as I mentioned, I think the utilities play at their own peril if they do not be part of the broader ecosystem and consult with other greater stakeholders. Because this dynamic is going to change and make the models. And linked with this is looking at more efficient utilization or even revaluing the portfolio of the utility itself. And the last one is around smart utility and the grids that I mentioned. And linked to this, I think the big theme, in spite of the technology that we have, the key area is also looking at resource and talent management. So the whole idea around skilled resources and people, ultimately with all of the systems and technology, we've got to have the right skills and people available to manage these systems going ahead. So as I mentioned, the business models are changing for utilities. It's really a balancing act. If we combine the technology developments and trends and the convergence of all this large and flexible distribution, generation capability we have, linking with the digitization of the grid, as well as new technologies around storage and intelligent systems. The key fundamental system requirement is ultimately around complying to climate change, reliability, affordability, and also the efficiency. And this is a little bit, it's easier said than done. But ultimately, to get sustainable infrastructure assets, we need to balance all of these things to make sure that we comply with the future energy trends.
Very close in our minds, and that we have done quite a bit of work together, not only in this presentation, but many others. Keep on driving. Keep on driving. Yeah, very good.